Welcome back to Kind of Relatable. Today, I'm here with my friend Cameron.
What's up? That's a terrible start.
No, it's great.
I tried to warn you already.
You're like, Cameron is here. We know each other from church. Cameron's one of our leaders in our young adults ministry. And I don't remember like the moment we met. I just know we've like known each other.
I was thinking that the other day. I was like, I can't either. I think it was, so my first semester volunteering was fall 2023. Mm-hmm. But then spring 2024, that was my first semester as a team leader. So I think that's where, because I remember showing up to TL retreat and I was like, I know Ryan and like that's, and Ryan and Will.
It.
And I was like, that's it.
Well, I think for me, I just like know the faces of volunteers and then I just start talking to people like I know them.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've known each other, what, like a couple of years now?
Yeah, I guess this is, since 2024. Actually, yeah, it's just like, maybe like a year and a half.
So like now, that's crazy. We have this fun thing where we hang out and work from coffee shops with a group of our friends. And because we are just in each other's circle a lot, this topic has come up a lot. And so I wanted Cameron on the podcast today to talk about something that he's passionate about. So Cameron, what are we chatting about today?
That's a great question.
What are we yapping about today?
I am passionate about creativity. And I think oftentimes I was like this for a really long time. I kind of had this idea of creativity that it's like tied to your personality. And since my personality, I wasn't a creative or like I couldn't draw a stick figure very well. that almost quenched all the creativity in me. It's like, oh, I can't draw, I can't sing, so I'm not creative. And over the years, I've learned that like it's not tied to your personality. It's actually tied to like your intrinsic identity. And so like learning that over the years has been really interesting because it's kind of like freed me up to be more creative. I don't have to think that like the art that I make informs my identity, rather the identity informs the creativity. And so that's been really cool to kind of explore and pick apart and like find, okay, in what ways do I want to create then? Do I want to create things in this avenue or this avenue? What do I want the consumer of this art to feel or think or question or learn? And so I think everyone is creative in their own aspect. I just think most of the time, I did for a long time, we kind of silence it. We like quench it. We just kind of label it, nope, not creative, boom. And then we never exercise that, right? Yeah. And so, I guess that's my answer.
Yeah.
And you're also a fellow creative.
Yeah.
And so
I'm kind of like the, not stereotypical, but the expected way of like being creative. So like I know how to graphic design and photography and things like that and videography, but that's like the typical broad stroke of like what's a creative. But I feel like also there are two ways you can access quote unquote creativity. One is like producing something and another way is appreciating it. And we didn't talk about this before.
I've never thought about it like that. I was like, I guess there is an aspect of appreciating it, right?
Yeah.
Like I never learned until I had a friend who was an artist. And we were like looking at pieces of art and they like taught me how to look at pieces of art. They were like, what's your initial feeling? And like, what do you think about these colors here? And all these things. And I was like, I didn't even know how you could appreciate art before. I just thought people looked at expensive things and just were like, cool. Then they went to the next one.
No, literally.
But there's an art to appreciating things.
Yeah. I guess the follow-up question is like, what's something that you enjoy like creating? What are ways that you think people are creative in like the output sense? And then what are ways that you personally like enjoy things that people have created?
Yeah, I think I'll answer the other people one first, because this is kind of something that I've been learning recently is like, okay, if my hypothesis, and I sound really nerdy here, but I'm just a science guy. If my hypothesis is that everyone is intrinsically creative, then how do they exercise that, right? Like there are people that like just can't sing that well or can't draw or all these things, and so they would label themselves as non-creative. If I look at them and say you are creative, in what ways do they create, in my opinion, based on my argument? I would say that every single thing that we do has a creative element to it. Like this podcast, you just kind of had this idea and this passion and you're like, I'm going to create this out of nothing. Kind of Relatable did not exist before you started it, right? It's like, that's creating it. Or our friendship, this was created out of nothing. Like this conversation, all these things are being created. I created my schedule for today. I probably created it yesterday or 2 days ago. Who knows? It's like everything in and of itself is created just like by the simple definition of it. And so people create friendships, they create schedules, they create careers, they create homes and rooms and lifestyles and meals. I mean, that was a hard one for me when I graduated college. I was like, oh, I don't have a cafeteria, or I don't have all these things. Like, I got to figure out, I got to meal prep.
I got to be an adult.
Yeah, I got an adult, and I had to create this like schedule. And so that's why I always, that's kind of like my way of thinking, like, okay, if you're not creative in the ways that most people would label being creative, you are creative. It's just I think it's easy not to recognize it. And so that would be my answer for other people. But also I would encourage other people to like explore other avenues of creativity, because there's just so much joy in it. But I think a lot of times that joy gets silenced because we tie creativity to our identity. Like, if I make something and other people don't appreciate it or don't think it's good, then that means I'm bad, which is another little soapbox.
That's another tangent.
But I guess that would be my answer to that question. The other question about like how I like to express creativity, I grew up really loving music. No one in my immediate family is like super musical, or just like never really like pursued anything in music, either when it comes to singing or instruments or anything. And so I just kind of picked up a love for it. My dad loves music. And so like listening and consuming music. And so I kind of learned that from him. But then I had a camp counselor that played guitar, and I was like, oh, I want to be like my camp counselor. Cause like everyone wants to be like their camp counselor. Right. And so I like got a guitar for Christmas, and then like tried to play it, and I was like, this was too hard. So I like threw it in my closet. And then senior year of high school, long story short, there was like a natural disaster that hit Houston. And so my house was flooded. I was living with my aunt, and senior year didn't really have a lot going on. And I was like, I'm just going to teach myself. I'm just going to try to teach myself, and taught myself guitar. And then in college began to like write songs and kind of explore this like storytelling aspect of songwriting and imagery and poetry. And that's like kind of the main avenue that I've like kind of experienced creativity in. Of course there's like other like creative writing and other things, but I'd probably say music is like my main form of expressing that. It's been really fun because it's something that like I have a passion for and enjoy as a consumer, and now I'm getting to learn how to be a contributor to that. And so it's been fun. Not that my art is amazing, but I think it does minister and encourage me and help me process things. I kind of like to think of like my song ideas kind of like my mini journal. It's like it helps me just like write down what I'm feeling, process what's going on, and kind of learn to get to the other side, or travel through it well.
Were you the person who told me that you can never write the perfect song, so you just have to write it or something? Tell me about that again.
So in like trying to teach myself how to write songs, I began to find different songwriters that I really liked, and just the art that they made and the stories that they told. And every single one that I would like follow, I would always like, even if they were like on Instagram and did like a Q&A, I would always like look through or like try to ask as many questions as I could, because I was like, man, I want to learn how to write like you do. And like almost every single songwriter, either in an interview or like a Q&A, every time they're asked like, how do you, like, what would be your advice to another songwriter? Like, biggest piece of advice? Most of the time their answer was always, don't focus on like writing the song, because the song will never be finished, because you'll always think like, oh, I need to tweak this part, or, oh, the verse needs a different rhyme scheme, or this word doesn't really work here, and the syllables don't work. I need to change it. It's like, if you're trying to make something perfect as an imperfect person, it's just never going to happen. And so I learned from those writers. They're like, I write like maybe 500 songs a year, and
that's insane.
And 10 or 15 get cut. Like 10 or 15 go to an artist and make an album or make a single. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you just gotta write. And not that all of their songs are bad, but it's just more like just repetition, finding what works, finding what you're passionate about, and really just writing to write, because you don't want to get stuck and feel like, it's really easy to get stuck in like writer's block of just like, oh, I'm just going to keep changing stuff. And then you never like it. And then a week goes by and you have this idea for a song, and then now it's gone because you've just exhausted it so much. Right.
Yeah. I think that's something that stops even me from like creating anything, or people from sharing things and putting things out is because we all struggle with like perfectionism. And not that I want something to be perfect, but nothing's ever good enough. Nothing ever like hits the mark fully. And so with my podcast, I release like 1 episode a quarter or something. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to like segment off time and just like talk and realize that it's going to be imperfect and that you should just put something out because it's not a reflection of who I am. It's not a reflection of like the quality as a whole. We just need to like find joy and make things to express what we're trying to express, not like try and be perfect.
Yeah. No, exactly. It kind of ties into like that other tangent we mentioned earlier where it's like you'll create something and think like, oh, I enjoy this, but I don't know if other people will. So I'm not going to put it out or I'm not going to finish it. And I feel like that lie can just so easily quench and silence creativity because you're worried that like your art is going to affect your identity when like I think it's the reverse. It's like our identity should be reflected in what we create. Like someone else's take on our art doesn't inform who we are, right? But it's so easy. Oh my gosh. Oh, so easy to get wrapped up in like, oh, if people don't like it, then I'm terrible and I'm not an artist and I'm not creative. It's like, no, don't believe it.
That makes me think about when like social media started becoming a thing and everybody like got on Instagram all at the same time. Everybody used to just post like, this is the soda I'm drinking right now. This is what I'm looking at outside of my window or whatever. And now everything's, and I'm guilty of it too, everything's like so curated. And so we swung from like, we post anything and everything, major authenticity. And then we swung all the way to everything's perfect. Everything's like shot on a DSLR camera and models and perfection. And now we're swinging back a little bit to authenticity, but it's like curated authenticity.
Oh, yes.
Like photo dumps.
I'm so excited that you brought this up because I recognized this like a couple months ago when everyone was just like doing photo dumps and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is so fun. Because I was like, this is back to when Instagram first started. I love this. We're just posting whatever we want. This is hilarious. And it's funny. But then I started to realize, no. You can photo dump. Yeah. It just has to be in a certain order.
They're a recipe.
It has to look a certain way.
They're a recipe.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, what are we doing? This is like fake authenticity. And do I participate in it? Probably.
Right. Yeah. We all do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I've literally seen TikToks of girls being like, this is a list of photos to create the perfect photo dump recipe. I haven't followed it. It's just like interesting how it's like the first picture is a cute picture of you and your friends, like a 0.5. And the second picture is something of your food. And it's like, even then it looks like it's uncurated, but it's so not. And I do it too. It's like I put an album together and I send it to my cousin. I'm like, should I post this or whatever? And you do your photo dump. So you're like picking highlights of things that you want to show. And it's not like you have a bad intention of like, I'm trying to be so curated in a bad way. But like, even then we're always thinking like, is this the right thing to post? And now they've increased the slide numbers to 20. So you can like pick up to 20 pictures. You can do
20 now?
Have you gotten that update yet?
Maybe. I've just always been used to 10, so I just only try to find 10 things.
Well, on Instagram, they do like waves of an update. So like some people will get it, and then after they like basically like beta test it, they'll like roll it out to everyone. So I don't know if my account has 20. Anyway, but you did your college years. Is that what it was called?
Oh, my like volume series.
Yeah, your volume series. And then you recently changed it again to young adult years.
Well, yeah, so it was college period and then it turned into young adult years and now we're in the quarter life chronicles.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What determined like the phases of your posts?
That's a great question.
I didn't know we were going to talk about this.
No, this is great. Well, but I think this still ties into creativity though, because I mean, social media is another example of ways that we create, right? We create our own personal brand, even though people wouldn't say that's what it is. I think that's what it is. Yeah. But so what happened was, well, quick not update, but clarifier about my Instagram. I've like never deleted anything. Yeah. So if you ever just want to like laugh, just scroll all the way to the bottom. No, it is so funny. It's hilarious. Insane. I love it because I'm like,
everything's there.
Everything's there. Nothing to hide. I think it's hilarious too. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. I like just have like a picture of a chicken sandwich, and I'm like,
what I ate today.
I was like, Mom made dinner today and it was so good. It's like stuff like that. I'm like, this is amazing. This needs to stay. But I didn't really like know how to like run Instagram properly. And then I got to a point in college that I was like, man, you know what? I think it would be really funny if I like documented my years in college by like this series where I post like once a month ish. And all I do is I just post from the timeline that I started one to the next volume. I just post like however many, I think it was 10 at the time, 10, like basically a photo dump of like these 10 things, and just be like college period volume, whatever. And that would be the caption. Like I wouldn't caption anything.
Ugh, you don't have to come up with captions. It's so nice.
It was so nice. It was great. And I was like, this is dumb. This is stupid. And my main goal was, I was like, I just want people to laugh at it. Yeah. Of course, like I kept photos in there of people that were special to me, of big moments and things like that. So like those are normally the first couple pictures, but as you begin to swipe through, you're like,
just
oh my gosh, what in the world is this? It's just like dumb, stupid stuff like memes or just whatever was in my camera roll, basically. And I did that in college, kind of starting, I think like my sophomore year. I started in sophomore year. And then when it was my senior year and like I was about to like graduate college, I was like, okay, I got to end this. I can't do college volume whatever when I'm like 26. Yeah. And so I was like, what am I going to do? And so it was cool to like sit there and be like, okay, like I really enjoyed doing this. And I would kind of go back and like, I found myself all the time like just reminiscing, especially my senior year, of like, oh, you know, this was sophomore year. Oh, I remember this in junior year. Or, oh, this was really cool. And so like, I kind of was like, okay, maybe I can just kind of close this as like a chapter of a book and then like start a new one when I graduate. And so I kind of treated it as like, so like my last volume, which was college, I think it was 22, was kind of like the last chapter of that whole saga. And I kind of explained kind of like what I wanted them to be. And so I kind of like labeled them like an Ebenezer. Like I wanted to be able to look back on each of those and be like, man, like that month was awesome. And the month right after it was awful. And so I can go back to both of those albums and see what happened and be like, oh man, God got me through and I'm all good. And so it was really cool to do that. And so I did that for young adult years, which lasted about 2.5 years. And now we're on Quarter Life Chronicles.
Quarter Life Chronicles. That's so funny. What I like about that, and like with photo dumps too, is you can put something out and everybody thinks like, oh, this is just supposed to be funny or whatever. But then you can look back at it and be like, oh, this is actually a really rough time in my life. And I just wanted to like post highlights, but you're like, nah, it was not okay. And so, I mean, it goes back to like expression in art is people can receive something a certain way, but you put something out and you're like, oh, actually like the story behind that stuff is much deeper. And then it like starts a conversation, starts something more. Something that ties that into how I feel like you're a creative is that you are a big storyteller. Isn't that in your Instagram bio? Storyteller.
Yes, it is. I learned that from Breakaway, actually. Did you know that? Did you know one of the core values of like being a Breakaway volunteer is storytellers. And it kind of ties into the whole reason like they share God stories and like we do at Metro. Okay, so like I learned that term from Breakaway and I was like, that is such a good, I like it from a creative standpoint, but I also like it from like just like a spiritual standpoint. It's like, man, like God has caused certain things to happen in my life and give me a certain type of ministry and certain type of experiences that I'm able to share with other people in the midst of what they're going through. And so why would I not tell stories of the way God's got me through to encourage them and push them and all these things? And so, yes. It is in my bio. Yeah.
Okay. So since you love to storytell, a way that has stood out to me in our friendship is, so whenever we're onboarding leaders, like we onboarded you, we asked you the question, explain the gospel. Like, how would you share the gospel with somebody? And I just remember, and I told you this, like I was like, Cameron, your gospel is one of my favorite ways that I've heard somebody share it. What's really cool is hearing the same truth, but like told in a different creative way. And so one of my favorite gospels was when you shared it with us. And I remember you were talking about like finding Jesus as the most beautiful thing. And you're like seeking out whatever you find is most beautiful. So I wanted to ask you if you would share the gospel on my podcast.
Sure. I don't know if I'll be able to do it the exact same way. Because I think the Lord uses every moment where his story is being shared to impact those certain people in a certain way. But the way that I share the gospel is by the use of an acronym. And so the acronym is literally the word gospel. And so the acronym stands for God, our sins, payment, everyone, life. And so the gospel starts with the first letter, God. G. And so in the beginning, God existed and he created all things, the earth, the sky, the stars, the universe, everything in it in a perfect relationship. And he created it and he said that it was good. He created mankind in his image. And he said that they were very good and they were in perfect relationship with their creator. They walked with him in the garden and enjoyed him in the fullest of his presence and his holiness. And it was just pure bliss. It was perfect. It was the way that it was supposed to be. And then the problem comes in with the O and the S, our sin. And so ultimately, Adam and Eve chose sin. They disobeyed the only command that God had given them in the garden. And so our sin is what separated us from God. It's what caused the divide between us and our creator. And so then you have in the story of this, like just in the story of the Bible, you have God continuing to be near his people, but it's not that perfect relationship. We see like 12 tribes of Israel. We see Moses lead, the Israelites out of captivity, all these things. And it's just kind of like you see just poor choice after poor choice, but God is still resilient and still fighting for his people. And then eventually we skip past like all that stuff and we get to the New Testament, where ultimately Jesus kind of shows up on the scene. And to backtrack a little bit, this is why I use the acronym, because I can get all over the place. The next letter is P, which stands for payment. And so sin, if you use the analogy of kind of like someone breaking the law, if someone breaks the law, there is payment. There is a punishment, right? And so for us in our sin, there needs to be payment. And so that's where Jesus steps in. And so Jesus, being fully God, fully man, was sent by God to come and live the life that we could not live, to be a human, yet also in perfect relationship with God because he was fully God and fully man, lived that perfect life, and then was condemned to die on a cross and take our payment. So he took the payment of our sin so that we did not have to take it, because it was a payment we could not bear, payment we could not pay. And he took that payment upon himself and died, and then 3 days later was raised to life. And his raising to life brings everyone life. So the E and the L stand for everyone life. And that life is given to those who choose to place their faith in Christ. I always quote Romans 10:9, which Paul writes, and he says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, then you will be saved. There's nothing else you can do. You do those two things, boom, the check is cleared. You have life. And so everyone who does those things has access to life. And then that's kind of ultimately the story of the gospel using that acronym. But personally, for me, one of my favorite things about the gospel is the beauty of it, because it is a story of self-sacrifice and love, which are like two things that are very just innately true that humanity cherishes, and we see it on full display. And then kind of what you're talking about the most beautiful thing in my walking with Jesus, I've learned that I'm most satisfied when I see him as the most beautiful thing. When my eyes are kind of diverted and I'm distracted by very many things that I think are going to all complete me, I just get so stressed out and I'm so divided in my affections that I just get frustrated easily. I don't feel at peace. But when Christ and the gospel is the most beautiful thing in my eyes, oh, I feel great. I feel unstoppable, right? Because it's like my eternity is secure, right? Yeah. And so that's probably how I would share the gospel.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it reminds me of, scripture says like seek first the kingdom and righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. And when we divert our attention and our affections onto things that God has created versus on God, that's when priorities start to shift. That's whenever like we start idolizing things and we start putting things before God, even though they're good things. Sometimes putting anything before God like distracts us and then makes our scale of beauty completely wrong. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
Another thought that I was thinking about is like the word Christian means little Christ. And if we're created in God's image and God is a creator, we're like little creators. And so us reflecting God's character and God's identity means that we are all creative too. And so I feel like that's where all of this comes from. Yeah, hypothesis,
we go back
theory,
to science if we want
science, yeah. Science guy. Yeah, that's so good. What is something that God is teaching you right now? This has just become a Cameron podcast. All about Cameron.
I had a question to ask you actually, but I'll ask it after I answer. Something I'm learning right now. Oh, I'm reading through 1 Corinthians right now, which love it. It's been really, really good. Paul is just yelling at the Corinthian church for good things. Like he does it in a loving way, of course. Mm-hmm. But I just finished up the kind of like chapters 11, 12, and 13. which have been really interesting because they're a lot about spiritual gifts and unity within the church. And then he ends kind of like 13 is kind of like the love chapter, right? That has been really, really cool because I've always like loved the structure of the local church and how it operates and how believers are, he talks about like, the eye can't say to the hand, oh, I have no need for you, and all these things. It's like everyone has been gifted in a particular way to edify the body, to glorify the Lord in, the ministry and advancement of the kingdom, which I think is awesome. It's almost like the church is like the Avengers. It's like each Avenger has like their own capability and their own strength. And then everyone uses that to be an effective team for the gospel. Right. And so I was like reading through that and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then then Paul talks about spiritual gifts. And then he immediately goes into the love chapter, which I think oftentimes we just kind of take it out of the letter and be like, oh, but love is patient, love is kind, blah, blah, blah. But like, I think it's so important that he goes through this unity in the local church and giftings and then goes into the love chapter of saying, hey, if you do all these really cool things, if you use your giftings in all of these ways, yet you don't love one another or love those around you, meaningless, nothing. And that was so like impactful for me. I was like, oh my gosh, like I can use my giftings in a poor way, in a way that's ineffective. I think it's effective.
Yeah.
But if I'm not doing them in a way to love others and I'm trying to advance myself or I'm trying to, hone my craft, it's like, man, I'm not being effective with the reason that I was given them in the first place, right? And it can even be tied into creativity too, right? Like I can create something that I think is awesome, but I feel like if I create it because I'm like, oh, this will make me look good, that's not the reason why I was made to create, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's easy to get trapped in that a little bit. But I think, that's one thing I've been learning. It's been fun.
That's really good. Everything needs to be rooted in love and love for the Lord and love for other people. Because if we're just making things, then it's in vain. And it's literally just making it about ourselves. That's why I don't know if a lot of people listen to my podcast, but the reason why I made it, one, I just wanted like an outlet to talk about what I wanted to talk about. And two, we can use everything that we make and create to point to Jesus.
Oh yeah. 100%.
And to point to who God is and how he's moving in our lives. And this is like one of the ways that I can like share it broad spectrum with a lot of people. And like, it might touch lives that I might not even know. Praise God if it does. And even if it doesn't, who cares? It's not about me. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. You're being faithful with what he's gifted you with, right? I always remind myself of, I'm blanking on the book. It's where Paul says, he's like, Apollos planted, or Cephas planted, Apollos watered. I'm forgetting the details, but the Lord brought the growth. Like, that's kind of, I think, like the essence of that passage that I remember is it's like, I've been gifted with certain things. You've been gifted with certain things. We are called to steward those for the glory of the Lord. And ultimately it's the Lord that's going to use them. It's not up to us to say, oh God, I'm going to create these albums on my Instagram and I want to see, 8 people swipe up on it and be like, this radically changed my life. It's like, that's not, I shouldn't hold God to that.
Yeah.
But also it's like, that's not why I was made and asked to do it, right? Because then I think it's also a protection, because then it keeps us from developing pride of like, oh, my work is causing this. It's like, no. Let's slow the brakes a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
like it shouldn't be transactional. It's like we're stewarding a gift that God has given us. We're being obedient and also like using it to point to him. If we get to see the fruit of it, praise God. If we don't, praise God still. Like our heart is not just to see results. And if we get results, it's by like the kindness of the Lord. And that's what I kind of try and remind myself all the time is like, God is so kind to show me that stuff because he doesn't owe me anything. Like he doesn't owe me an explanation to anything because he's already explained the purpose of our lives and it's so that we can be with him. And so if we're not stewarding these things for him, then like, what's the point? Like we're just puffing ourselves up and putting ourselves on a throne and trying to like gain the fame and the fortune or whatever. I'm like, I don't care about that stuff. If it points to the Lord, then like that's the fortune.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think what you're saying exposes, I think, the way the world views creativity. Yeah. Because the world views creativity as, oh, you create art so that more people like you. Not create art to, speak out about something you're passionate about, or, I think of like just the biggest music artists. And I use music as an analogy just because it's something I follow a lot. But like you take like the biggest music artists on the planet, and it seems like no matter what they make, it's huge just because they are who they are. It's like they can make something that's like, I don't know. Art is subjective, but they can make something that's not high quality, but people are like, oh, this person did it, so it's great. Or someone else can make something and it's like, oh, that's not good, so you're bad. Like, and so that I think is the lie that I can fall into as a creative, going back to what I was saying earlier of like, I want to, if I'm going to create something, everyone has to like it, so it has to be perfect because it's going to inform my identity. It's like, no, that's not true.
Right.
But no, that's a good point. I do want to ask you though, because this came to mind thinking about we're created to create, and we create things for the glory of the Lord.
Yeah.
You do creative things quite often also for your vocation. How do you stay focused? Like, how do you stay focused on like, okay, in what I'm creating, I'm wanting people to see the glory of the Lord and see Jesus as the most beautiful thing. But you're also having to like, you know, be like, okay, I need to create something that's of quality, and I want to make sure I'm not rushing anything, and I want to make sure that I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to boost my own name.
Yeah. I think because I create for a ministry and the ministry's name is on it, that helps me a lot, because my main job is not like on the Jillian Velasco brand. That helps me like keep myself in check, where it's like I step away and I'm like, it's not about me. Our social media content on Metro is not about me. It's to highlight God's activity. And so that's something that I'm very big about leading our creative team in. We're creating things by capturing what's already happening. We're not fabricating anything. We're not making it look false. Like when people show up on Tuesday nights, they're seeing what's on the social media. Like, I don't want to like trick people into thinking like, oh, there's like 5,000 people here and they show up and they're like, there's definitely not. So I keep the main baseline like, it's not about me. It's me highlighting and capturing what God is doing, what he's stirring, his characteristics, the culture that he's building. And I'm just here to use my gifts to magnify that. And so it's kind of like a mirror, right? Like mirrors don't have light within themselves, but you point it at something that's light and then it reflects it out. And so sometimes, like if you look at little like, well, I guess kaleidoscopes, like you shine one light through it and then the kaleidoscope makes it look super crazy, colorful, whatever. That's not the kaleidoscope making anything new. It's just highlighting what's already shining. I'd honestly never thought of that illustration before.
No, that's a great illustration.
Yeah.
I mean, the mirror illustration is really good because, I mean, you're just shining white light at something and then all the spectra are coming out of it. So it's almost like, it's not that it's filtering, it's just showing you, hey, this is what you're used to seeing. Boom, it hits the creativity filter. This is actually what that comes from.
Yeah.
This is actually what it is.
Yeah, it's like science.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is that one image where it's the light that's shining into the little triangle thing, and then like it's the rainbow of colors?
Yeah, it's like a prism.
Yeah, so the prism is not making anything new. Like I'm not making anything new. There's nothing new under the sun, but it's just highlighting different aspects of like what God is doing. And I just say that over and over, but that's like genuinely where my heart posture is. And I'm grateful that God keeps me there, because it's so easy to fall into your pride, especially with creative stuff. I appreciate when people affirm me and our team and they're like, wow, you're like so good, you're so talented. And I'm like, praise God, because that's all for him. He could take it away tomorrow. He could cut my hands off tomorrow and I can't graphic design any, that's morbid, but like,
I mean, it's true, but it's like, oh my
crazy.
God. I was thinking like, man, I couldn't strum my guitar. It's like, oh, that would be tough.
But yeah. And so I'm not perfect in it, but like you keep your eyes on God when your baseline is like, it's not about me. I'm just using this stuff to point it back to the person who gave me my talent, you know? And so I guess I kind of started with like my first like creative stuff was like, well, I grew up like loving to sing, but the way that I really got into creative things was I bought a camera and I just started like taking pictures. And then I started serving at my old church and I was like, well, I guess the only thing I can do is like take pictures, so I'll just like take pictures every Sunday. And so I started realizing like we're not showing people something that's not happening, but God is moving in various ministries that people are involved in. And so how can I be a vessel to capture it and to show it to other people so that it can be accessible? Something I've talked about before too is like social media is the modern well of this day and age, because I might have talked about this on the podcast, I'm not sure, but I'll say it again. If Jesus met people where they were already going, he met the woman where she was already going, which was the well. So how can we meet people today where they're already going? And so that's why I think social media and the digital space is, one, it can be a dangerous place, yes, but two, it's important to use it as a tool for the church so that we can meet people where they're already going. People already have their guard down on social media. They already trust people. They're just like consuming stuff. And so why not put out what's happening in the church and how God is moving in social media? And so I think that's where my passion in ministry can be in some ways. And so that's how I stay focused. I know that was a long explanation, but
no, that's really good. I mean, as it helps inform me of how I stay creative, because I don't create for a church. And so it helps me stay focused, hearing about how you guys do it and just like your perspective on it, because it helps me when I'm, writing a song or working on a book or something of like, oh, like I want to create this thing because my main purpose is to glorify the Lord, and I want to encourage people and ultimately like have people think about things a different way. That's kind of like always the way that I've treated songs. One of my favorite songwriters of all time has a quote where he says like, a good song should not answer questions. It should just ask them. You should listen to it and it should just leave you with thoughts. It should not leave you with answered questions. Yeah. It should ask you questions and leave you with thoughts. And so if I'm like, okay, I want that to be my purpose in what I create, and I want to make sure that the thoughts are thoughts of like, glorifying the Lord or of his character or, of ways that we fall short. And then in that we see the beauty of Jesus. Right. Yeah. But no, that's really good.
That's awesome. Okay. I have a final question for you and then we'll wrap up. What is a way that you are excited about creating right now? Or like, are you working on something right now? What are you excited about?
That's a good question. I've been a little bit off of my music game as of recently. I haven't been writing lyrics and poetry as much, but I have started a new endeavor, which is very new to me in like a creative writing space. And so basically, very short background, last year, one of the things that I learned a lot from like my personal time with the Lord was just a lot about this idea of resurrection and just like how us as believers, we are a new creation and we are to live as if we're a new creation. And so in the fall, the Lord had kind of given me this idea of writing a book, which I like immediately was like, no, I'm not going to do this because I hate English class and English it's not fun. Like I like the music side of storytelling, not the writing side. But the Lord was like, hey, just trust me, just try it. Like basically just try to write about it. And I was like, okay. And so I had this idea of like, okay, and this is all from the Lord, this idea of a younger brother writing letters to his older brother about him getting invited to a Bible study from a coworker of his, and then hearing someone's testimony and like hearing about the joy and freedom they have in Christ, and then asking questions. And ultimately, early on in the book and the letters, this younger brother would give his life to the Lord, and then the rest of the book would be the younger brother learning to walk like Jesus and learning to follow him. And so I think the unofficial title for the book is like the Resurrection Letters. Like each chapter is a letter, kind of similar to Screw Tape, if you've read Screw Tape, the Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis. So that was like a big inspiration, like structure wise. But it's been so fun to write. It's been hard. Yeah. Because it's been really fun and hard because I'm writing in the first person and I'm putting myself in the mind of someone who doesn't know Jesus. Yeah. Who like literally knows nothing. I'm really excited to like get to, later in the book where maybe I'll explore the idea of like Matthew 6, where Jesus is the Sermon on the Mount is like, hey, do not be anxious about anything. And, like look at the birds of the air and the flowers of the field and like how I clothe them and provide for them. Like you don't have to be anxious about your life. For me, who's followed Jesus most of their life, I can read that in the scripture and be like, oh, that sounds awesome. Yeah. I wish that were true. Or like, oh, like I want to get to a place of that. Whereas a new believer would read that and be like, that's awesome. I want that right now. Mm-hmm. Yes. Like that, like they take it on with like a simplicity and an urgency and believe it to be true. Whereas for me, I think I can often just be like, oh yeah, that's true. Maybe I'll feel that one day, or maybe I'll get there. It's like, no, you have that right now. So yeah, that's been really, really fun to explore.
Yeah. So, that's awesome. Like, I feel like writing in a different perspective will open up your eyes in such a new way. You can even like interview new Christians or like interview non-believers, and it can like turn into a ministry for you. I don't know if you had that idea, but
no, this is the first time. That sounds awesome.
Honestly, it can become a cool like discipleship thing for you, but you're really like doing research for the book and stuff. That's really cool. Do you have like a goal of when you want to finish it?
My goal is to finish it this year.
Oh,
so I think
yeah,
I'm
you
like,
did tell me that.
I'm almost done with the second chapter. The part of the book that I'm at right now, this is the hardest part. I think going to be the hardest part of the whole book is the main character, the younger brother, like literally just finished having coffee with his coworker who like brought him to the Bible study, and his coworker just shared his like whole life testimony with him. And it was like really emotional, and there's a lot of tension that's been built. And I'm literally like at the line where like the younger brother has to basically say yes or no to the gospel. Spoiler, the answer is going to be yes. Nice. But I have to figure out. Nice. Let's go. Praise God. Go. Or maybe it'll be a curveball. Maybe he's like, no, and
not
the book's
yet.
Over. No, I just don't know how the main character is going to say yes, or like what his response is, because I don't know. My following of Jesus, I like was always raised around the church. And so like, I think like my decision to follow Jesus, not that it was made for me. Like I feel like I knew all the right things, but it wasn't until like middle school that I was like, okay, I'm going to choose to follow Jesus. Like I felt like all the other, I was like, okay, I'm doing as I'm told, but now I'm going to tell, my flesh to die, and I'm going to tell my spirit to live. And I'm going to choose these things of God. That was the decision I made, versus now I'm having to, this person is literally going from death to life, and they literally know nothing about Jesus. They're like, I just want this. I just want freedom. I want safety. I want security and love and to be fully known and all these things. And so, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to do that.
I think it'll be cool to see it fleshed out, because that's like literally it's a new way of creativity, it sounds like, for you, because you like write music and you play and things like that. And so I think accessing a different side of creativity will be a cool experience for you, because it's not only going to be you expressing, but you're going to like stir new things and learn new things and exercise new muscles that like you hadn't before. So that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome.
I love that. Okay, do you have any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Last thoughts?
Anything I didn't ask about?
Oh, no. I think the only last thought is this quote just popped into my head, because I think it ties up a lot of kind of what we talked about really well. So a friend of mine at camp, his name is Caden Van Horn. Shout out Caden. Love you, bro.
He's definitely watching this. I'm just kidding.
Love this guy. His Instagram bio for a while was this quote. I remember screenshotting it because like, that is so good, and I never want to forget it. And you could probably change your bio, but I don't want to forget the quote. And the quote was so simple. He was like, God does not call us to make a good sounding noise or a perfect noise. He calls us to make a joyful noise. And I was like, that is so simple and so good, at least from a creative perspective of like, yeah, like I don't have to come to God with like a perfect repertoire and a perfect portfolio of my art. It's like, man, I can bring him a song that I completely sung in the wrong key, and he can look at me and be like, thank you, that glorifies me, right? It's like a child with like a painting. Like if you give a 5 or 6 year old child like a coloring book and crayons, they're probably not going to color in the lines, but you're still going to be proud of them if they filled it out, right? And so I think that's a fun picture that I try to remind myself of. It's not that deep. Use your gifts to glorify the Lord, and there's so much joy to be found in it. Yeah.
And it goes back to what you were saying, like it doesn't inform our identity. Our identity informs those things. Like a parent's not going to look at a kid's coloring and the kid's like, Mom, I drew us as a family and I love you so much. And the mom will be like, well, that's ugly. Throw it away.
Yeah. It's like all of us are the same height. That's not realistic. Right. What are you doing? It's like,
it's not good.
No, a parent would never do that. Like they would feel so encouraged and be like, oh my gosh, our child loves our family. Yeah. And our child is wanting to express this, and it's going to bring the parent joy. And so the child's going to have joy from it. Yeah. And that's the way it is with us and the Father.
Yeah. That's how God is. He just looks at us like we are his children, and he's glorified by our heart posture, glorifying him, not because we're just like talented and amazing. Like the most talented artist could hate God, and that doesn't glorify him, even though they have like great art releasing and everything. So, well, Cameron, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is so fun.
We've been talking about this episode forever.
I know. But hey, now it's done, and we created it out of nothing.
We've created it,
and we hope it glorifies God.
And now it's going to be out on platforms. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening to Cameron and I, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast. But thank you for tuning in. If you want to check out Cameron's Instagram and all of his young adult years and quarter life, what is it? Quarter life Chronicles.
Chronicles. Shout out Nick Wick for the name idea.
There
that
we
was
go.
from Nick.
Yeah,
he came
we
up with
never
that.
talked about y'all's songwriting podcast.
The
Maybe,
Song Chasers.
yeah.
Well, no, that's like a direct compete.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's like
we don't want to compete with kind of relatable Song Chasers. The Song Chasers no longer exist.
Song Chasers, the limited series.
Yeah, they're not.
Check out his limited series podcast called Song Chasers. I actually listened to it and I liked it a lot.
Oh, you did? Did you find
the
songs
first
that you
2
liked?
episodes.
Oh, okay. Did you find any songs that you were
I
like,
need to
cool.
look them up because I liked the clips that y'all played.
Oh, gotcha.
And then I hadn't listened to the one where y'all had the artist on it.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like saving it.
That one's wild.
I was saving it for like a long drive or something.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, yeah. So I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in and see you later.
See you guys.